Okay.
Says
Well,
it's connecting. Says it's connecting. I think we're live, sir. Yes, we
all
are.
right. I am going live too.
We are live this evening, and discussion in a discussion already,
Yes, we
about
are. Yeah.
film and the music therein.
Yes.
This is Zak Ciotti on the YouTube channel, and I'll hand it over to my friend who's broadcasting from his Facebook channel.
Yeah, broadcasting from my Facebook channel. My name is Lorenzo Emmanuel. Welcome everyone to this lovely chat. Hopefully, we'll say things that are relevant to you today.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
We'll see.
But we're going to keep it really short today. We're going to keep it somewhere between 25 to 30 minutes, if my camera wants to settle down. Here, let me see.
I need to get my mic to settle down.
Settle down, sir.
Yeah, there we go.
So one of the things that we were discussing just yesterday was that we should do this. We should put together a little discussion where we jump online together and we talk about various things.
Yes.
Today, we didn't actually pick a topic, but some topics that we did come up with were industry standard software, what we're used to using, what we've heard of other people using, what we would like to be using if we had all of our wish list.
Yeah.
And then like Apple versus PC. I know my computer is unhappy with this.
Your computer is on fire.
Could be my phone. Could
Maybe.
be my.
It's always the phone.
There's something happening.
Yeah, it's like it's switching.
Yeah, I know. It's like unhappy.
It's like I don't want to see your face.
That's really too bad. Well, maybe that's just the sentiment of everyone watching out there. I'll hit stop on my virtual camera.
Zach. What happened to your face, Zach? What's going on? I can't see you anymore.
I don't know, dude.
It's funny because like up until now, all the technical problems were on my side.
I know. Why is this?
And we pressed go live, and all the problems. It's
back to me. Well, we'll keep that in mind and be fair and trade later. Another thing that we were going to talk about eventually, and we're going to bring in our buddy. He doesn't know it yet. We haven't talked to him about this, but Josh Saby. Yeah. If you haven't been watching my seizure-inducing camera problems, we're going to invite you to come join us in a conversation about our documentary, American Tragedy.
Yeah.
And the music that Lorenzo did in that, and what the relationship was like, and how Josh pitched it to Lorenzo, and how Lorenzo got into it real fast.
That in and of itself, it's a story for another time. Yeah. Just how we pitched it to me and how I pitched in to do the job. That's in and of itself. Anyway,
it's gonna be fun.
He doesn't know this yet. Calling him out.
Exactly. The only other thing that we were talking about doing was talking about scoring to picture. I asked Lorenzo to help me with a little something last year, and there was immediately the issue that was brought up about how we go about doing this with a temp track or not. This love-hate experience. I'm sure it was more on the hate experience. But anyway, it's fun. We're working on a bunch of different things. We have a bunch of different topics, but I'd say tonight, Lorenzo, what do you want to talk about?
I think you brought a very interesting point because a lot of people. So I've been buzzing around the various music groups. I'm gonna turn myself a little like that so you guys can see a little more my face. But anyway, you brought the ever contentious point of Apple versus PC, which I kind of want to address, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, please. Let's get into it.
I've been buzzing around all these groups, and I'm several groups that talk about so they offer support, and there's tech support. Like a lot of people are either on Apple and on PC. On the more I the more I talk about it with people, the more I see people commenting about which one to use, and the more I just get to the conclusion that it really it either matters a lot or it doesn't matter at all, which is, I know that it's a very weird uh very weird situation, a very weird answer. But so I guess what I'm going to start with is, you mentioned you wrote a post on Facebook lately, recently, where you were saying, you know what, I think I'm going to go back to Apple. You've been going back and forth,
Right.
and so I chimed in a little bit and I said, well, if you want to go back to Apple, wait until, they're going to come out with some good stuff. What is the, you gave a list of things that you like about Apple.
Yeah.
Would you like to
Yeah.
sort of like expound on
I
those?
would. I really would. Yeah. And this again, it comes from the perspective of someone who has been doing this and going back and forth so many times. I first started out in Windows. I think like
Sure.
most people did. I think there were a couple of people that were using that original like deep Mac, like half transparent blue plastic thing. Do you remember seeing this?
Yeah. I think I owned one of those.
My family did not have one of these. I couldn't imagine having one of those. I think my family was a little late in adopting Windows compared to some others, but we did have a computer in the house significantly before that. But it was never a Mac. My family was never into the Apple computers, and that first introduction that I had to Apple really was the iPad. I'm sorry, not the iPad, the iPod.
The iPod, okay, yeah.
And so the pod, that's neat. When I came back to the States after serving a mission in Eastern Europe, I remember seeing someone on the plane had an iPhone where she could like turn and flip through pictures, and I was like, what's happening? This world. And I was like really blown away by all this technology. The touch screen.
By the way, this is really like us declaring to the world how old we are.
That's true. Touche.
We're dating ourselves.
Also that, yeah. And I had a DOS computer. We ran DOS. So it was like C : / forward, what is it, greater than, or whatever all the commands were, right? And I did some creative stuff with that. But when I first started out in my career, I bought my first computer. I spent, I don't know how much money at the time, but I bought a computer, I bought the software, and I bought a camera, all of which were just like bare minimum. Even I mean, when I think about it now, it's like I probably didn't even know how to use it well enough to like make sure it was running appropriately. But I started with Premiere Pro, the first professional software, which I don't think it was all that special at the time. Even I mean, it definitely was far from being industry standard. I don't think they were making movies with it at all yet. Right. And but when I went to film school after that, I had already gotten used to the Adobe Suite. And then I heard about Final Cut and what a great thing this was with the Apple computer. So I was like, okay, I guess that's the right thing to do. And so they had a Mac lab. It was just all Apple computers in the film department, and same thing with the design department. And I remember this one guy saying the number one reason why I would stay with an Apple computer for this career is because of this. And he had selected a file and he just slapped the space bar and it instantly previewed. It didn't seem to open up a separate app or anything. It just previewed the video. It just started playing automatically. And I was like, oh, and it made so much sense that like just navigating and reviewing footage before you brought it into an NLE, a nonlinear editor like Final Cut or Avid or Premiere. It was just so useful. And so that was one of the big things. And so I did make a list of top 10 things that I wish Windows would do natively. I know some of the things you could download something separate, but it's not integrated very well enough. So if I could mention what these are, I said I would stick with a Windows computer if they would have a built-in quick preview that doesn't require a
Yeah.
separate app. And
Right.
there are problems with that. If it's a separate app, you can't delete a file because it's being in use and so on. It's very very different from Apple. Second
Yeah.
thing was side-scrolling column view in File Explorer, just like in Apple Finder, and that is just so easy to like just one click move back and forth through files,
Okay.
which
Okay.
it's kind of hard to describe if you haven't fiddled around with it enough, but navigating for the purpose of organizing quickly and previewing things, it's just super duper helpful. And a lot of things happen in Finder, which are really good. Another thing was um, the way you could do a batch renaming in
Mm.
Apple. Like there's a lot of batch renaming files, which for most people that's not terribly useful, but for someone who's organizing a ton of
For
footage, that's a
yes,
big
for
deal, right?
creative people. Yeah,
For
no,
for creative people, right?
for me especially, when you organize stems
Oh,
and you're trying to
totally.
like name stems before you
Yeah,
send them to the
exactly,
director, it's yeah,
exactly.
that would be extremely
Exactly
helpful.
that, and it is extremely intuitive. It all happens within the OS. The other thing is like Apple has a really different style of type navigation when you're typing something, jumping from the end of the sentence,
Yeah.
and so on. Which is I remember when I switched back over to Windows. So I went from Windows to Apple, then back to Windows, then back to Apple, and back to
Yep.
Windows, and now I'm on that Windows computer. And so it's just there was so much back and forth. But anyway, something else about that was the ability to quickly uncompress files or gather files into a new folder. And so this is another Finder related thing. Instead of File Explorer on Windows, Finder allows you to just double click and you uncompress it.
Right.
If you want to select multiple files, you
Hi,
right click.
Jordan. By the way, Jordan just joined us
Hey,
to
Jordan,
watch. We
welcome.
got Jason and Eric and Jordan. Welcome to the stream,
I
guys.
hope you are just as bored as we are. We have these examples where you could on a Mac you can select multiple files, right click and hit new
Right.
folder, and you can send them to a new folder, which is something I'm always wanting to do. Always wanted to like
Yeah.
organize things that way. The other thing was buttons that eject your drives, the AirDrop, and there are some other apps you can get. Again, they just don't work. They're not integrated well enough, which drives me
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and overall, like there are less glitches when there are less options, right? And so,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I hate to say this, but like it's really not just the specs. It's not just um, having the most powerful CPU and graphics card and stuff.
Yeah.
There's something else that is just far less glitchy. I hate to say it, but
It's and that's actually a very interesting point that you hit, because more often than not, when people talk about Apple versus PC, it's rarely the specs of the computer that make people buy into Apple specifically,
true.
but it's
Yeah.
it's far more the way the OS and the ecosystem works. As completely opposite to that is the PC world, and also the reason why I moved from Apple to PC. I started on PC, then I went to Apple, and then from that I went to PC.
Yeah.
So I also had like a little bit of a flip flop there. And for people that move to PC, the specs is really what sells them on moving to
Yeah.
Windows,
Yeah.
because you can have basically a very similar set of specs and hardware for a third of the price that you would have with Mac. But again, I think it's very interesting, because the people that work on Mac are far less concerned. They either started like, they had a 9 to 5, they saved up for a MacBook Pro or an iMac,
Yeah.
and so they started their entire career on that, or they started on that, and so like they are so familiar with it, it's pointless for them to change over the Windows.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the ones that do, it's because they it's because they realize, oh wow, I can have 8 core 16 threads
Right. Yeah.
for a third of the
Yeah.
price.
Yeah.
And
And
so
yeah, and I think like people think about what you can get, but I think what they're really saying is it's the price, you know?
yes, that's
Because
exactly it.
I think most people, they're referring to price when they're talking about that war between Apple and
Yes.
PC. It's less
Yes.
about which OS is better, what's
Yeah.
going to function better for your
And
career.
and to be honest, if you go on the apple.com and you try to build your Mac, you're hit with insane
I know.
markups on specifically on the RAM and on the drives
Totally,
side. So if you were
totally.
to build an iMac Pro or a Mac Pro
Yeah,
and you wanted to select I don't know 512 gigs of RAM, which for a video encoder or for putting on sample libraries,
hmm
you kind of want more RAM as possible. You get hit with like tens of thousands of dollars of upgrades when if you bought it on a third party application, like for instance MacSales.com, you would literally save a third, like you would pay a third of the price. So there
yeah,
is that component. But what people that are yelling on groups about like, oh, you should buy a Threadripper computer instead and you save like so much money. Why do you buy into
yeah,
Apple?
yeah,
People
yeah, yeah.
like to yell about this stuff. What they don't take into account, it's everything else. It's like, okay, yes, we pay two-third more in components.
Absolutely.
Fine. But what about this?
Yeah, absolutely,
There's so much
absolutely.
that you probably are not considering. And again, and I love it because I stumble so many times into people that on groups, somebody's asking, hey, I'm trying to buy this Mac Mini. It's a very good deal. I am on Logic Pro, which is a software that you can only have on Apple,
Yep.
which is a great software, by the way. Fantastic, phenomenal software. Um, and somebody like every single time that somebody says I want Apple because I am on Logic. Okay, it's like saying I'm on Apple. I want an Apple. I'm on Final Cut Pro.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
you can't have
Just for
Final Cut
that,
Pro on PC, right?
right? Yeah.
And somebody timely, like it's every single time, every single post. You should buy an Intel machine instead because it's better. You pay less. Why do you
Like
pay
the
more?
arguments. Yeah.
And it, you're missing the point.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
completely, entirely
Totally.
missing the point.
And if I could, do you have what software do you have open up on your computer right now?
I
What are you
have.
looking at?
So I gave in into the Deutschland, and I'm in Nuendo. It's called Nuendo, and this is the big brother um, of Cubase, which is the software that I actually originally started out my entire career. My first computer was a old Pentium 3, uh, very underpowered with like 2 gigs of RAM and 2 cores. And I started out with Cubase 3. And then my dad bought 2 iMacs for the house, one for my mom and one for him, to do scores and basically copyist and do arrangement and orchestration. And so I kind of hijacked that computer as one always does. And so this is what Nuendo looks like. So this is the template that I use when I am starting any given project to score into picture. So I have a
Yeah.
video track right here. So I would import the 480 or 720p footage that I get sent from
Yep.
you or from other directors, and I would have right there, and then I have my very useful temp track and Foley and effects and dialogue, which I can turn down at will. And for the purpose, since we're here, I'll show you a neat little thing that I made on this tablet right here. I don't know if you can see it,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I have basically those 3 tracks laid out right here. And so I can raise individual and lower individual volume. So if I'm doing a spotting session with the director behind me, I can, if I'm like, okay, let me hear that without the dialogue, and I go in and I dial in the
Yeah. I
dialogue
see that
volume.
happening.
So it's in that gets basically translate right here. If you look up top here, the volume knob, I'll show you. It's right
So
there.
you have a tablet, a touch tablet that's allowing you to interact with a window of
Yeah.
your app that you're using.
Yes. So it is basically a third party. It's a third party app. It's called Touch OSC.
Okay.
That's the one that I use, and you basically construct. I'll show you what I have here. You basically construct templates, and I'm working on one right now because I'm about to merge these two tablets into one very soon. So I have this little neat thing, and I'm building this, basically merging the ones that I have on my two tablets. And I have a bunch of
Ah,
different functions. I know I can export the whole project. I can open and close the editor, which allows me to change notes and everything. I can duplicate tracks. I can open the instrument tracks. I can set look at a cursor, which basically it does this. If I want the beginning of the project to start right here, I can hit that, and now the locator is there. So what that means is that if I'm over there and I want to go back to it, I can go back to that point, and I can do all sorts of stuff that activate macros, shortcuts. I can open mixing windows right here, so all my mixers dedicated for specific things. So I mean, this is the kind of software that you would find any composers would have when they you hire them to make music. So they would have
yeah.
something along the line of this. And you have sounds, and right now I got one of my favorite pianos load in, so it's very, very easy. Although I got to be honest, this software right here, it is a little interesting, because this software right here, among all of the ones that you find out there, it is the one that gives you the most headaches. But it comes with a feature that has basically everything that you would want, basically. So,
All right. So I do have a little bit of a. I'm setting you up here a little bit. That's like a piece of software that's very complicated. Lots of menus and buttons, right?
yes.
Okay. So if you need to find something that you know exists in the menu, how do you locate it?
So actually, I don't know. So there isn't help.
There's a
There isn't
help.
help.
You can always go
So
to help, right?
I know where you're going with
I
this,
know,
because
exactly.
Apple does have that.
Exactly.
And Logic Pro, which is the software that runs on Apple it's basically this, but
Yeah.
Logic, has the search function,
Yeah.
which is phenomenal.
Blows your mind,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it
Yes.
feels like something that would not be. I mean, because come on, these softwares, like, they're always copying each other. I don't know how it works. Like, whether there's like a patent problem that like prevents people from just sharing all the best ideas. But you see them copy some ideas.
Yeah.
You see them like borrow little bits and pieces of things. But there should be a way to search if
There should.
those same exact apps
I
exist
agree.
elsewhere. And the way it happens in Apple, you see it, like, it highlights that there's a little blue arrow that pops up next to the part that you're looking for. It's terribly useful.
Yeah.
I hate to say that that
No.
is something that I always need, because I lose things. I lose menus. I really feel like I do.
Well, especially when you're working in software this complicated. I mean, Nuendo is basically industry standard on a couple of different in a couple of different realms. It's not just for music composition. It is for TV broadcast. It is for mastering and mixing. It is for, along with Pro Tools, Nuendo is basically industry standard for, the serious mixing engineers and the serious mastering engineers
Yeah.
that don't want to deal with Avid.
Ah,
they
Stay away
deal
from
with this, which has everything. I mean, this software right here has native support for Dolby Atmos. So, I mean, you want to master it, you want to mix and master something, and you want to have it, you want to sit down into the dub stage
Yeah.
and mix it for Dolby Atmos, you can do it on the software. It's native.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't get more advanced than that when you are able to produce an entire production for big theater in
Totally.
IMAX or whatever directly in the software. It comes at a cost. It's $1,000 software, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Totally.
less than Pro Tool HDX, which is
Totally.
tens of thousands of
Yeah.
dollars.
Yeah, I
So
was I can relate with that whole thing where you're balancing budget and what you need to do
yeah,
because I mean same thing happened with me and first of all cameras and second, I look at examples of people who because my point is like most clients don't know the difference. And so you're really doing it for the sake of your peers. You're doing it for
yeah,
the sake of staying ahead in a different way, right? But when it comes to like the final result, I hate to say like most customers or clients can't tell the difference between cameras that I'm using. But there's another example we just saw. An organization that we're working with has had quoted to them from a different production company, someone who was going to do some editing, and it was going to be like 3 days of work or something, and it was someone working in the program Flame, and Flame is like it's not something you do normal like like not these kind of commercials anyway. And not it's like a flame
I'm
artist
not
is
gonna ask what
definitely
that means.
it's something it's expensive, it's untouchable for a lot of us indie
Gotcha.
producers.
Right.
But it's interesting how I don't think the client would really ever be able to tell the difference there. And I experienced that same thing with cameras. I got rid of one that it was considered a cinema camera. It was very professional. It was very
Yeah,
large looking, and something told me I had to drop that and go with something more accessible
yeah,
for my uses. And the
sure.
clients, we mixed and matched, and maybe it helps to be good at coloring. You can color match
Right.
things, but the truth is that they couldn't tell the difference, and so and again, that could be
Interesting.
like part of the trained eye. Different people are going to notice different things when they're watching, just like with music, right? People are going to
Oh,
hear the
absolutely.
difference. And I have to admit here, like, that ukulele that we see up here behind me is the first instrument that I've ever, like, really genuinely tried to learn. And that was just last year during the beginning of our American pandemic here. And so I do want to say I'm not the kind of guy with a good ear for music. I don't even like watch for it to be like synchronized with the video sometimes. And like my wife and I were just watching this behind the scenes of the making of this music. It was
Mhm.
this like 1930s, 1940s style big band samba
Right,
music,
right.
and it was really like cool. And I was like, you got to check it out. I know you like this because she's like way into music, and I didn't even notice, but they were like pressing the buttons on on their instruments and stuff, and it wasn't making noises. And she had to point that out to me. So this is how ignorant I am when it comes to music. So I'm not hearing the same things that other people are. But you have to admit, like, there's a lot more people into the world of music and to what sounds good
You know,
with the right ear than there are with people that are looking for what it looks color accurate or color
I,
matched, right?
I think it has to do a lot with the fact that music, in terms of accessibility compared to video productions, it's a lot easier to access and a lot easier to consume. You can be in the car and listen to music. You can and listen to soundtracks. You
Totally.
can be. I mean, music comes with a lot of other mediums too. For instance, if you go and watch a dance show, chances are there's going to be music in that dance show. The dancers are going to dance to some form of music. You watch a video, there's music, but you can't really watch a video while you're driving. So I guess
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
a bunch of reasons for that, but that's a really good point. I think a lot of people pay more attention to music, but I'm going to have to be honest. Do you need, or do I need Nuendo to make industry standard music? Absolutely not. I could make industry standard music on an iPad, on a free software if I wanted to. I think that's the the points. The
Yeah.
reason why we buy into these expensive softwares, it's mainly because of the feature sets and how our life is rendered simpler because of these features. Because again, for instance, I'm taking the example when we're doing American Tragedy, I had 3 months to make the score. And I 3 months is a good amount of time for about, for an hour of music. American Tragedy was packed with music, and I think there was something like 65 cues.
It's beautiful too.
And thank you. But I think it was I arrived at the end of the closer to the deadlines. If I didn't have certain types of features in my DAW at the time, I actually did it with Cubase. I did American Tragedy before I updated to Nuendo, and if I didn't have those shortcuts, those feature sets that allow me to do multiple things at once, I probably wouldn't have made the deadline. So what are you really paying for when you're buying these expensive tools and for instance, when you're buying Mac versus PC or PC versus Mac or Nuendo versus Audacity or, what is it really that you're buying? Is it you're not buying talent, because this software is not going to allow you to make better music. That's up to you.
Yeah.
And just like a new shiny camera, it's not going to allow you to make better films.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to use the camera in the first place, if you don't know lighting, if you don't know, all those things. So we are buying into features. And that's the thing that a lot of people miss when they say, buy a Threadripper instead because it's cheaper than a Mac. Well, you're missing the main point, which is features.
Oh, totally.
Features. You have to understand what people like better about a specific type of software, because both of them, both Mac and PC, both Final Cut and Premiere Pro, both Nuendo and Logic Pro can do the exact same things at the exact same level of speed and efficiency. The only thing that changes, the only variable, is us. It's who's behind that.
Right.
And people that say like buy a Threadripper instead of an Apple because the Apple tax, which is a myth, by the way. And it's a myth because again, like we're just saying, you're buying into features, you're buying into an ecosystem.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Completely dismiss the point that it really, the factor between an Apple and a PC, it's not the Apple PC itself. It's you. It's who's doing the work.
It's the person doing it. Yeah. And same thing goes for, like people in any part of the creative field, right? You see someone who's like doing a really good job taking photos, and someone always has to ask, wow, what camera do you have?
Right.
He takes some really good photos, which I don't think I have to go very far to like explain why that's offensive. But the idea is like, you don't tell your someone that's cooking you dinner, like, wow, you've made some really good food. What kind of oven do you have?
It's like, what knife do you use? Like this cut was like
that's solid. It's funny how we do attribute a lot to that, and it's I think it's a natural tendency, but I totally agree with you. There's so many features that for us make it better, but like we said, the best in our industry, the best camera you have is the one you have with you.
Yes,
that's 100%. It, right? And
100%.
So whatever it is that you're playing music on, recording music on, it's limited as it may be, it pushes you to pull out the real part of the talent, not the supplemental resources that you have at your hand, but like
absolutely
what's making you do it good. And I mean, I can't express it enough to everyone, like how awesome of a composer Lorenzo is. He has just blown us away at every turn. And I mean, I remember like the first little bit.
It's all Nuendo.
Let me finish that.
It's all Nuendo. I bought this and then
it just took care of itself. It just was, the music was writing itself. Just the button, like the go viral button on YouTube.
Exactly.
But the moment we were first hearing some of the stems, my wife goes, "Can I get the soundtrack to this already?" You know, which I feel like we mentioned this to you, and you still didn't get us a soundtrack. I don't know if we're waiting on like some licensing deal with
You
some.
don't know.
Anyway,
I don't even know. I don't even know if I own that soundtrack anymore
that's
after
right.
the distribution
That's a
company
good. That's a
swooped
good
in.
question.
Yeah.
Which is not a terrible thing to have in our resume. Um,
No, for
but
sure.
I gotta say, you did an incredible job, and it's been
Thank you.
awesome working with you and talking with you. But this is not the end of our discussion on this topic. It's just the end this evening. So it's
Yes.
been a little over 30 minutes. No surprise that we talk a little bit more than we expected to because we're buddies. But
That's right.
there is Lorenzo Emmanuel from Boston, not originally,
Not
and
originally.
and Zak Ciotti down here in Raleigh, North Carolina. So it's been fun. It's been real. Any final thoughts, Lorenzo?
Buy Apple if you like Apple, and buy PC if you like PC.
Right? Totally. Yeah.
That's all it is.
I know. I mean, it's there's a lot of weighing that you end up
Yeah.
doing. Even with individual softwares, right? I mean, so much can still accomplish the same thing. It's just,
Absolutely.
some people are trying to do it fast for some reason. Some people are doing it within their budget. Some people are doing it because of individual features that it comes with, and that's what's taking me back to Apple. Sorry, PC. Sorry, Windows.
That's great. That's great.
But been fun chatting with you, and let's try this again next week.
For
And
sure.
maybe at that point, we're gonna pick up talking about ta maybe more specific software. We'll get into that a
Sure.
little bit, and
Why not?
we may be able to like talk about what makes it good, what makes it bad, and what people should be using when they're starting out. What you think other people that are what's considered industry standard,
Sure.
what's considered that at the top, and we'll come up with some more topics between now and then. Anyway, thank you very much, buddy.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you. This has been fun.
absolutely. All right, we will catch you later.
Catch you later, guys. Bye.